Welcome back to Watch Child Pod. I'm your host Kayla. This is episode 4. We made it to episode 4. Um y'all know I said it was going to be difficult to get here, and I didn't think it was going to be difficult for me to get here, but I did give y'all that little statistic last time that it's hard to get past episode 3, or a lot of people stop at episode 3. And I don't know if that's because, they lose the motivation, or by episode 3 they've put a lot of work in and they see that maybe it hasn't paid off yet. But we are still here. We've got some loyal listeners, and I am happy to be here. Um, it's episode 4. So I was thinking, oh, Kayla, why did it take so long to get to episode 4? Why did it take so long to get here? Um, your girl has been filling her schedule unnecessarily. So I've been kind of busy. And then the one week that I was full on, my heart was ready to record. My heart was set on recording. And I wouldn't have been too late with recording and releasing my episode. I got sick. Me, my husband, my kids, all 4 of us literally got sick. Um, and that made it obviously not ideal to record, because if I would have recorded, I would have been sneezing and coughing in the camera. And it was giving it's May. Why are we sick in May? It's hot out. Well, it's been raining actually for weeks. Um, but I'm like, it's literally, it's about to be June. Like, spring is here, summer's about to come. And we thought it was allergies at first. No, we all got a full blown cold. Like, it was pretty bad. Um, and then even the week after that, I still sounded pretty bad. So it's just this if you don't have the visual to compensate for the fact that my voice was sounding sick, then you're just listening to me on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and just listening to this cold, congested voice. And who wants to hear that? Come on. So I think I did us all a favor. Um, yeah. Besides that, just working, um, and going to the gym, and that's all been fun, but it keeps you very busy. So other than that, I was thinking of giving a little bit of a more personal update, but it's hard because I know I like to give these stories without giving all the details. But I will say, um, when I mentioned, I think I mentioned in episode 3, that was the one about anxiety and all that, and go, just make your decisions, just do something so God can move. Your girl said that and is still struggling with that. So I just want you guys to know that a lot of the times, I'm telling all this stuff and I have not perfected it myself. And a lot of times I feel like God gives me a word that is also for me. So just letting you guys know, when I said in episode 3, I was like, I have this decision that I'm probably going to overcomplicate. Your girl is overcomplicating it. So pray for me, because it's not fun. We just want to make smooth decisions. We just want to keep moving. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be stuck. It just be happening. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention, but I can't think of it right now. So yeah, for episode 3, we talked about anxiety. Episode 2, I'm already forgetting what episode 1 and 2 were about. I know episode 1 was the intro. Number 3 was stop thinking about it and just do it. And number 2 is blanking on me. I'm not sure why. Not like it really matters. But if you go back and listen to those, or watch them on YouTube, however you'd like to listen. Um, yeah, just connect with those, episodes, and comment on them and enjoy them. Take them all in. This episode, I kind of just wanted to get into, or would like to get into, um, submitting to the process. And there's so many different ways that we can, look at the perspective, or just come at this topic of submitting to the process, right? Because I think that it entails accepting what season you're in, even if that's a difficult season. But acknowledging that when you say like, okay, I'm gonna submit to the process, it's mm, it's acknowledging that you're in something that's meant to refine you and make you stronger and make you better, right? So you're submitting to it even though you know it's difficult, and even though you know it's painful and uncomfortable. You're saying, all right, I'm in this season. I fully accept that I'm in this season, but you know what? I'm still gonna praise God and I'm still gonna find joy in every day, and find joy in every moment. And I think that when you take the perspective of like, okay, I'm not like, yes, I'm in something difficult, but I'm not going to be pouty about it. And I'm not going to be like, give myself a pity party because I'm going through something difficult. Um, First of all, I think when you have like a good attitude towards that, it's gonna shift everything, right? Because you're going to have joy because you're choosing to have joy. Does that make sense? Um, and I think that God smiles on that. I think that He appreciates long suffering and appreciates, right, because it's a fruit of the Spirit, but He appreciates long suffering and He appreciates a grateful heart. And that's what kind of like, that's what part of like submitting to the process really entails. And I think another good part of submitting to the process, like when I was thinking about this topic, um, I don't know if it's necessarily submitting to the process, but I was thinking about this topic and I was thinking about how I used to work at a fast food restaurant. And um, you know, I feel like those places typically have pretty long shifts. They have some normal ones, but they also have some long ones. You can work lots of hours, and you work alongside a lot of great people and meet a lot of people, customers, coworkers alike. Um, but there was always like this, and I think this is in a lot of workplaces where you guys kind of just develop a culture of like saying when you see each other, like, yo, I can't wait to go home. Like, this is boring. I don't want to be here, blah, blah, blah. Like, and when things would get tough and things would get really busy, like, that's when people would say it the most. Like, oh, this sucks. Like, I can't wait to go home. You know, the whole thing, the whole nine yards. Like, it's just the culture of work, no matter where you go. Like, even where I'm at now, like, I've been working in schools, and it's the same thing with teachers. It's the same thing with people alike. Like, they are just, it's Monday. This sucks. Like, but like I don't want to ever like I don't ever want to go into Monday and feel like, oh, it's Monday. Like lately I've been waking up and I'm like, oh my god, yes, it's Monday, happy Monday. Like, I'm excited, it's a new week, we're going into something new. Anyway, and that's a good attitude to have, but that's aside from my point. So what I was saying was, everyone typically has the whole like view of like, "Oh, I can't wait to go. Oh, this sucks. It's really busy right now and it's stressful and I want to get out of here." Um which is great, right? Or not, but that's typical. It's common. Um and the perspective that would always help me get through it, and I think sometimes people looked at me like, okay, like, why is she being so deep, or who does she think she is? Um is just that, like, I was like, okay, well, but the shift has to end. The shift is coming to an end. At the end of the day, I'm leaving. I'm leaving at 2, I'm leaving at 3, or whatever time. I'm gonna get out of here. So it's okay. Like, it's not that deep. It's all good. If I had a mean customer, or like, and don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I didn't get upset. That doesn't mean I wasn't upset sometimes. If I had a mean customer, or an interaction with a coworker or something, that doesn't mean I wasn't upset. But it helped ground me and remind me, like, okay, the world doesn't have to end over this because I'm leaving. It's not that deep. I get to go home, and this is not my end all be all. This is not my entire world. So we're clocking out. Um, so yeah, just remembering that, I think putting that into perspective for life, right? Because it was always that, like, to be transparent, it's always easier for me to do that for a work shift. Sure, I can do that very easily for like, if I if I'm working 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., like I know I'm leaving at 2 p.m. Okay. Full disclosure, my camera definitely went off. Don't know why, but we're back. So what I was saying, it's a lot easier for me to do it for a shift than it is for me to do that when I'm in a difficult season. Um, but I think if we could take that perspective and apply it to our difficult seasons, we would see some change, and we would kind of like ride the wave of difficult seasons a little bit differently and find joy in them. And I think that that's what God wants us to do, right? Um, and really, what I was kind of like hoping to get across to you is that your difficult season is setting you up for your winning season. The the dark season you're in is setting you up for the light. And I think that that's why we have to keep that in perspective, because a lot of um, grooming and refining and growing is happening in the dark, and we see that with people, right? I I couldn't stop thinking of, for some reason, for weeks and weeks and weeks, as I was thinking about this topic. I couldn't stop thinking about Joseph and how he had to go into slavery to be set up to be king, right? It's so funny because I was reading it the other day, not reading it, but I think I was like listening to the story, and it must have been like the kids version, and it was saying governor, but I've always heard king growing up. So, uh, clarify that how you'd like. But I can't stop thinking about him because he has a dream that his brothers are going to submit to him. They're going to all bow down to him. And he takes that dream and he goes and he tells his brothers. And his brothers are like, first of all, his brothers already can't stand him because he's the favorite. And now he has this dream and they're like, who does this guy think he is? Like, oh my goodness. So he gets sold into slavery, and dang, I don't want to mess it up. He does get sold into slavery, and they take his coat. You guys have heard it all, I'm sure. Um, and he ends up in prison. After I don't. Okay, he ends up in prison, and he ends up gaining favor in prison, and he ends up being in charge of the other inmates. And this was him, like he's gaining favor in these ugly, dark seasons. And it's funny because I know we're probably thinking like, okay, yeah, but like for me, I know I would think, okay, sure, I'm in charge of the other inmates, but I'd prefer not to be an inmate. Can we not be an inmate? Can we get out? Please, please get me out. Um, and I think we're always thinking, when we're in our dark seasons and difficult seasons, and we're going through things, I just want this to end. I can't wait for this to end. And that's kind of what I was getting across to you, is like, yes, it helps to keep into perspective that this will come to an end. This is temporary. This is not what I'm going to stay in. This is not what I'm going to live in forever. Um, yeah. But when we keep that in perspective, it helps get us through it, and I think it helps us submit to the process. So he knew that he had to be in that process, right? So he comes out. He's in charge of other inmates, and he comes out of slavery eventually, and then he comes out to be king, right? And when he sees his brothers again, they're very remorseful, and of course, because like they end up having to bow down to him just like in his dreams. And he says to them, like, it's cool, like I had to be here to get where I am now. And like, if that's not like, that shows us kind of what our dark seasons can be for, right? And I often think of like, I feel like maybe I didn't explain that one too well, but he was able to recognize that he needed that to be where he is now, to be king. And I think the same thing about David. And I remember speaking on this one for a sermon like a few years ago, and um talking about how, like, David was this shepherd and he had to serve as a shepherd for a very long time. And while he's in there, he gains all these skills, right? And he gains I think a level of humility, and he gains a heart for God, um because he's serving and he's serving. And he's the least favorite of the brothers, right? Um and he's just in, like, he just serves in that season and does what he's supposed to do. And then, right, when it comes time for there to be someone to fight Goliath, he volunteers to fight Goliath. And at the time, Saul is like, "No, bro, you can't do this. Like, he's still young. He still doesn't look like he can do it. Why would they think that David could defeat Goliath?" We don't know, right? So Saul doesn't want David to do it. And I'm like jumping from story to story here. I'm sorry. But Saul doesn't want David to do it. But David's like, "Please, bro, I got this. I can defeat this giant." So Saul's like, "Okay, bro, but take my clothes." And David's like, "Nah, your stuff doesn't fit me." He's saying, like, take my armor, use what I know, do it. He's saying, go do it, but do it this way. And David is like, "No, that's not going to work for me." So what David does is he takes the skills that he's learned as a young boy, as a shepherd, and that's how he defeats Goliath, right? He defeats it with his weapons and the tools that he's familiar with. And if he had not been in that difficult season, and if he had not been what the least favorite, and if he hadn't been working and serving in his difficult season, he wouldn't have had the tools or been prepared to fight Goliath. And no one else was able to do it, okay? So someone needed to, and David did. And then I think that the same thing applies to when David becomes king. It's the same thing. A lot of the things that he learned helped him and postured his heart so that when he was in a position of power and in a position of authority, he always had his heart postured towards God, right? And we know of David as someone who messes up a lot. He messed up a lot, yes. But the thing about David was his heart was always postured towards God to the point where he always ran back to God. So no matter what he did, he knew he was going to go back to God. And that's right. That's aside from the point. At least from the point that I'm trying to get at, but take it if you need it. Um, the point is really that our hard seasons serve a purpose. So I really invite you to, like, dig into your hard season a little bit, and first of all, be intentional about having a grateful heart towards God. Be intentional. Be intentional. Wow. Be intentional about finding joy in this season and being joyful, um, because there's something here that you have to learn, and you're gonna miss it if you're just waiting to till 2 p.m. to clock out. Now, like I said before, that is a good perspective to have, to remembering that the season is going to end is a good perspective to have to get you through it. But you can't sit down staring at the clock, because really, when we sit down and we stare at the clock and we're waiting for our hard season to end, or when we're waiting for our shift to end, you miss it. You miss the point. And the thing is, you don't, if you don't pass the test, if you don't learn the lesson, you're going to have to take it again. Okay? Do I have to say that again? If you don't pass the test, if you don't learn the lesson, you have to take it again. So your hard season doesn't really end until you learn what you're supposed to learn in that season. And I know that can be a tough thing to say, because it's like, okay, well, I'm experiencing this or that. Like, how could you say that there's something I'm supposed to learn here? But there's always something you're supposed to learn, no matter what we're in. When you're in your winning season, there's something for you to learn. When you're in your losing season, there's something for you to learn, right? And what I'm trying to get for you is that the thing you learn in your losing season is what is setting you up for your winning season. Okay. And then when you're in your winning season, the humility that you gained from your losing season, the lesson that you learned from your losing season, excuse me, I don't know why I got so close to the mic, um, is going to help keep you in that winning season, right? The, our life is full of highs and lows, and it requires us to just be intentional with God along the way, right? Down and up and down and up. Um, why did that feel so? Okay, I'm just gonna. Um, yeah, it requires us to be intentional, and it requires us to be joyful. And I don't want to ramble, but I want us to get the point. Your hard seasons is serving a purpose. Your difficult season is serving a purpose. The things you're going through right now are serving a purpose. You need to dig into your relationship with God because you can find joy in that season. And when you do, is when you're going to move forward. That's what's going to launch you into your next thing. Um, and this is for me too. Like, it's just, I think for me, the big thing right now is that I feel like I'm in the in between. Like, I'm in between. Like, I'm on the brink of something really good. And I don't necessarily know what that is yet, but like things just feel awkward. Like, I'm transitioning. Um, and that for me can be difficult, even if it's like, even if my whole world isn't necessarily difficult, even if like I don't necessarily have struggles. It's a struggle for me to be transitioning. Change is hard, and transition just can be really difficult, I think, for anyone, but maybe not for anyone, but I think a lot of us struggle with transition and with change. um, so it can be difficult when you see yourself coming out of a season from like, and being separated from a group of people, or being separated from people, being separated from an old season maybe that you thought you were going to be in much longer. That can be really difficult, but I'm going to encourage you to kind of not to kind of, but to to let go of whatever God is asking you to let go of, because I guarantee you God has something better for you. And I I can think of so many times that I've heard too, like, we should be comfortable too, um, when God asks us to get rid of things, to get rid of people, um, just to let go of something. He may not necessarily replace that thing for you, um, but I think that when he asks you to get rid of stuff, sometimes it's going to be for your own good. It's just going to be for your own healing. It's not even going to be because you need like a new, like you need a new one, right? What a new whatever. Like I don't know. If you lose a friend, maybe you won't gain a new friend for a season. Maybe because God wants to heal you in solitude, right? Or maybe God wants you to get rid of some friends so that he can give you godly community. Um, but if you're so, stuck to old friends and old seasons, it's going to be hard for you to get new things. And you're not in it for the new things, but when I say get new things, it's going to be hard for you to move on. It's going to be hard for you to move into a new season and move forward. And like, if you're like me, you don't like to be stagnant. You don't like to be in a season of transition that seems like it's not moving. You want it to move, like, right? We all want it to move. We want to get to the next part already. um, but I really invite you to just dig in, like dig into the hard season. If you're struggling right now, and I mean if you're struggling with finances, if you're struggling emotionally, mentally, physically even, I invite you to like slow down, because I think that we want to rush out of it, but slow down and reflect and look into your relationship with God. And I think, you know, um, kind of like figure out, okay, what am I learning here? What does God want me to learn? Ask God what he wants you to learn, and go from there. Go from there, from okay, here's what I'm learning, here's what I have learned in this season, and now I know in the future, maybe not to move the same way that I have moved in the past. Now I know not to deal with certain people the way that I have dealt with people in the past. Um, I think it's important to not like necessarily go into because I don't ever want to teach people like to come out of a situation and be more guarded, because that's not what I'm saying. Even if that's not what we're necessarily talking about, I think that a lot of people come out of a situation and they're like, hey, they come out of heartbroken situations and they're like, okay, well, I'll never trust anyone again, and I'll never. That's not. Come on. Um, uh, that's that is not necessarily healing, and that's not necessarily like a lesson. It could be. It is a lesson learned, but it's what you're doing is like kind of just blocking yourself off, and it's not healthy, you know. So so dig into your heart season, and when I say dig into your heart season, I mean reflect. And I think that in almost every episode I'm going to tell you in some way, shape, or form, dig in, reflect, do the work. um but be intentional about being grateful in this season. Be intentional about having joy in this season. And be intentional about being grateful for where you are, for what you have, and being grateful to God for those things. And thank God for those little things, the little things in your life. Because even if everything sucks right now, you're waking up every day. You have food on the table, you have clothes on your back. And it's like, okay, those are the little, like, we know, we get it, Kayla. We've heard it all since Sunday school. Um, but no, like, teach yourself to be grateful for those little things, because it'll teach you to find joy in every single day. Um, so I invite you to do that. And I think you'll be grateful once you get to your next season. Once you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you will be very grateful that you kept your head up high and depended on God and walked with God in your hard season instead of pouting and crying and kicking and screaming. Um, you'll be grateful that you kind of learned, submitted to the process and submitted to the lesson that you're supposed to learn in the season. Um, and a lot of times what comes out of difficult seasons for you too is healing. So you'll be grateful that you submitted to that because you opened yourself up to healing. um, so I invite you to continue to do that, and I'm excited for your next season. I'm excited for your healing. I'm excited for your joy. I'm excited for your gratefulness, but I'm excited for the light at the end of the tunnel for you. Um, this has been episode 4. Thank you for listening to Wise Child Pod, and stay tuned because we have a lot of good stuff coming for you, okay? Episode 5 will be out before you know it. We will have some guests on here before you know it. And watch out because you might be my next guest, or one of your friends might be my next guest. So make sure you're listening. Make sure you have subscriptions on. Make sure you have notifications on, because Wise Child Pod is back and we are on a roll.